Hey everyone, and welcome to a brand new Digital Foundry Direct, where we're going to be talking about the state of play gameplay reveal of Horizon Forbidden West running on PlayStation 5. It's our first chance to see this game in any real depth, and joining me to discuss it, first of all, John Linneman.
Hey Rich, ready for some action here. Let's do it.
And of course, if there's even the slightest hint of ray tracing, we have to have Alex Battaglia involved. Hello, Alex.
Hi there, Rich. I'm excited to talk about this. Let's do this.
We're keeping the ray tracing dream alive for Horizon. So let's do it. Let's watch the trailer. Okay, so first impressions, what do we reckon? I mean, first of all, basically, confirmation it's being captured on PlayStation 5. They're not hugely specific about the nature of the cutscenes, whether they're real-time or cinematics.
I guess in the original there were a couple pre-rendered sequences, but I think that was only done to allow for quick transitions between areas.
Yeah.
So I suspect these are real-time.
Yep.
I think one of the first things I noticed immediately is the quality of the facial animation I'm presuming these are going to be actually real in-game cinematics running an engine in front of you in real time, and the facial animation on this character here, as also Aloy herself, is much, much higher than what we've seen before in the Horizon series.
It also doesn't have that issue where it's not as visible anywhere, where the physics system sort of resets on camera cuts. And you'll see like all the hair and jangly bits kind of like pop every time the camera changes. So that's gone.
Yeah, that's nice to see gone, thankfully.
They're also showing a lot of granular detail on both the characters and just like the foliage in general. So it does seem like they've kind of improved the fidelity of all that.
Yeah.
But I could see some artifacts from the volumetric lights
in the
there.
background right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and indeed on the fur. So I think you're right, John. I think it is real time, definitely.
Look at that tree there as the camera spins.
Yeah, you can
really see
that's
it.
just like low resolution kind of volumetric lighting stuff going on there.
So they're probably doing like, what do you think, like quarter res or lower?
Could be lower. It could be lower, honestly, because usually for volumetric lighting, it doesn't need to be super high res for most shots.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the key. When we say that, that's not a bad thing. That's pretty normal.
I think it's just the sheer density that we've got to appreciate at the moment. That was kind of the big wow factor at the original PlayStation 5 reveal, and that's what we're getting here. It's just huge.
Honestly, the sense of scale here, I feel, is a step up as well. Like, there is this density, but also when you look out, it feels like it looks really great. But the water, actually,
Yeah, the water there was great.
When they showed that that was actually one of the weakest parts of the original game. It was stunning to behold, except for the water. The streams were okay, but you know what I mean. The reflections and the way large bodies were handled was not great, but that has changed dramatically here.
Yeah, and I think we need to talk about the hero light, Alex, because even our Digital Foundry Patreon supporters are saying, what's going on with Aloy's hair here? It seems to be kind of having a white light on it at all times.
Essentially, in my original trailer, if we can just scroll back to that really quickly, at one point I mentioned that, all these shots from the original trailer must be from cinematics, because in each and every shot with characters, there's always a light or two coming from the side away from the sunlight. And it's casting shadows, and usually do this in movies, in film, and in game cinematics to make characters pop out a bit more, and because indirect lighting in video games is not actually of really good high quality. So the dark sides of models tend to look really bad, or if a model's in shadow, they tend to look really bad. I was just saying back then, they would only do that for cinematic lighting, but apparently in game here, no matter what Aloy is doing, where she is, there's always like maybe a trifecta of lights following her around, lighting up the model, and some of them are casting shadows, it looks like. So she's kind of always glowing, no matter where she is on screen.
It's an interesting stylistic choice, actually. I mean, I'd be curious to hear the discussions around this. Like, is it something they've done for visual purposes, or were they trying to solve a problem with visibility within a dense environment where they wanted to ensure that the hero was always extremely visible no matter where you're standing? Maybe it's a mix of those things, but it is it's unique.
It is curious, and I think you could get away with it. I think it would look fine because it's kind of like a hyper-real presentation. It's like super bright, super saturated.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's just kind of like the highlighting, the constant highlighting on the hair that kind of looks a little bit strange. But
it's almost like there's like a constant rim lighting on the character, but as a result.
It is a little weird because it does, with the way that the game is doing anti-aliasing and with the hair, it does increase the amount of aliasing the game has, which we're watching this trailer here through YouTube here, the presentation they had there, the 4K 30 video. The compression is really intense, I found, but even then, through all that compression, due to the foliage and the hair and all that stuff here, it was pretty noticeable to see a lot of aliasing in this trailer, which, you know, those things are really hard to get rid of, even with some of the best anti-aliasing solutions, but it's just one thing that definitely stuck out. But looking at the shot here as Aloy, after the cinematic just played out, and Aloy's in the tall grass, if we look at this kind of bombed out looking kind of sandbar building here in front of her, we can see what I think is actually a rather dramatic upgrade to the game's indirect lighting or global illumination, where inside the building itself, there's a lot of darkness, like underneath the little archways and in the windows themselves. But you can also see on the front side, facing the camera here, right near this patch of sand here on the ground, there's indirect lighting from the sand bouncing up and hitting the side of the structure.
You get sort of that orange glow within the interior there.
Yeah, it's quite a bit nicer looking than what you could really ever find in the original game, which I thought the original game's indirect lighting was good, you know, for like a PlayStation 4 title, open world and stuff, but it really couldn't show off the nuances like this, I would imagine. But I have no idea how they're doing this right now, but it is rather impressive to see, for sure.
It is, yeah, I agree. Although right there you can, just looking at that shot, if you look at the reflections there, you can see some deficiencies already.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But yeah, indirect lighting in general I think is a big deal in this game. And it'll be curious to see though, because we were just talking about the hero light. And when you take that into consideration with what they're doing with indirect lighting, when you're in those darker areas, Aloy herself doesn't necessarily interact with the light as naturally as you might want.
Yeah, she does look like she's glowing in a couple scenes, but I guess that's, you know, maybe they'll stylistically change that, or maybe that's just a work in progress kind of aspect.
Yeah. But still, like, let's not nitpick too much right yet here, because there is some great stuff coming, I guess. So right away we have the red foliage there. Oh, I like the sparkling on the water.
That is very nice.
I can already tell this is going to look great in HDR, because the original had a good HDR implementation. You can also see with the dinosaur creature thing there, it sort of reveals the fact that there are still screen space reflections. But
a good pause there right between as the dinosaur is rearing up.
Yeah, you can still see stuff underneath him. So there is a secondary reflection there.
I'm not sure how they're doing it though. Maybe it could be planar reflections, it could be something else, it's hard to tell, but there is definitely SSR that's blending over it, whatever it is. That's for certain.
Yeah, water is pretty much a perfect use case for planar reflections usually, especially sort of calm bodies of water.
For sure.
I love that though, after that dinosaur part, she slams down that smoke grenade and it's nice looking smoke effects there.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll get a closer look at the sand deformation soon, I think. But that is a nice thing as well. And also you can see the water caustics
Yeah,
there,
it is very cool. I love water caustics.
which is nice. The water in general, I think, is a huge boost.
Yeah.
Which, again, we'll see more of that shortly. I also like the point lights on these creatures.
Yeah, that's something that, you know, brings back the whole Killzone 2 days with point lights in every single character's face. That's what I'm always reminded of.
Those things are very like Killzone inspired for sure, and in a good way. I really like that.
So right here, when Aloy kind of moves into the water, we get to see some more of that water deformation in firsthand, which in the first game, which was, you know, really rudimentary. It's like John in his video back then pointed out how it was.
This looks awesome right here. This is much better. And also when she dives underwater, this part looks amazing. I think. It's got me craving a new Echo the Dolphin game now.
But looking at this geometric detail, I am wondering what the heck the PlayStation 4 version's looking at going to look like, because all that coral,
like, what are they going to do about this?
And everything on the sides of buildings, I don't know how well it'll...
I also appreciate how when she swims into this sort of like the underwater plants there, they do react to her movement.
But what's going on with her hair, though?
Yeah, it's kind of screen door effect happening on the hair.
Yeah, I wonder what that is causing.
But I like the way it moves with each stroke in the water.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
The fish, the particles,
Yeah.
wow, that looks
They're
great.
basically really revamped traversal just generally. So obviously the underwater stuff is brand new, but they're really going for it in terms of new options for negotiating the environment with the grapple hook and whatnot. So we are actually seeing new stuff here beyond some pretty astonishing looking visuals.
There's just so much granular detail in all the things, like the coral, the trees, everything. The amount of geometry being used has been ramped up so much.
Yeah,
it seems.
Which once again, though, does beg the question about how this is going to run on PlayStation 4. Like that car there, with the coral on it, to be completely honest, you don't see that kind of geometric density on a PlayStation 4 game running at 1080p,
Exactly.
30 FPS usually.
Then we just saw a familiar character, and then this huge creature sort of stumbling in and destroying all these trees, which is cool.
It is pretty phenomenal, but I just keep looking at it and I keep wondering about the whole design workflow and how they're straddling the generations here. Because it's really difficult to imagine much of this stuff running on PlayStation 4. I mean, I guess you can pare back detail, I guess you can have lower geometry, I guess you can reduce the lighting and foliage and take away quite a lot of the experience. But at the same time, this is Guerrilla, and as we know, John, from our visit to Guerrilla a couple of years back, this game has been in development for a long, long time.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess this is probably a good point to mention it, John. As Aloy's running here, you can talk a bit about the Foliage Interaction.
Yeah, so this is something that hasn't really changed that much, I'm seeing, and I think we both kind of noticed it, is large foliage tends to react to movement, but small foliage, like grass and some of the less important plants throughout the environment, they still don't react as she walks through it. There's no foliage bending there, which is one of the few complaints that we leveraged at the original game, and it's something that's been in many games over the years. So I'm a little surprised to see that hasn't been changed either. But I guess now that we're out in this open field here on the sand, we're going to see a bunch of the sand deformation stuff, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, it's less obvious when they're just walking on it, but there's going to be an explosion that'll occur and some lasers, dinosaur lasers, my favorite Turok thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They have the nice motion blur going on again as well. Although the shutter speed in Decima has always been set a little strangely, I feel.
It's not so smooth as other games, yeah.
It could be more.
Quite an interesting focus on taking on human opponents here as well as the mecha dinosaurs. Hopefully there's a bit more to this than just the kind of Far Cry style camp clearing. There's that sand deformation with the spear attack there.
And a lot of the things that we're talking about, by the way, so that people understand, we're not talking about things that are related necessarily to hardware deficiencies,
No.
right? This isn't a slight of anything like that. This is just decisions that were made in terms of how they're doing certain things within the game, right? That's important. Although, I did just notice that little bit of grass there. I did see some movement from her foot. So it does, again, like the original, it seems to vary. Some plants move, some don't.
Yeah, it seems like it's not touch bending or something like that, but maybe it's just a rustle animation that plays, and it still clips or something, but it doesn't actually move out of the way.
I do like their stream system, though. The way they handle the running water there, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, the directional water there, the way it hits the side of the bank, it's just pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And again, the scale here is really great, and the visualization of that's like the Golden Gate Bridge there, in ruins, it looks like.
Yeah, I do wonder if you can actually go to some of those faraway places, or if this is set dressing in the background that just looks really awesome.
I'm pretty sure you'll be able to. I mean,
I hope you can.
the Golden Gate Bridge must surely be a visitable location in the game.
So here's another area where I think you can get a better understanding of the indirect lighting. When we kind of pause, you get a look under this arch where in the original game, say you go to Meridian, I think is the name of the city in the game. In all those areas with arches and that, just everything has an orange glow, and there's no darkness usually under arches and things like that, based upon how they did their indirect lighting. And in here, under this arch, you get at the opening mouth of it, you get sunlight coming in a little bit, so it's a little bit lighter at each of the openings, but underneath the arch in the middle section, it gets primarily darker. And that's something that I think really sells the game's visuals here in comparison to what it looked like earlier. It adds so much more contrast into the lighting as well. So that's pretty awesome. I like it a lot.
So we've got mountable steeds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Big new gameplay mechanic, and it looks epic.
I'm really liking, man. We get a more view of the ocean there, and that really is just a tremendous improvement over the original game.
Yeah, the cresting waves with like like that internal,
the foam as it hits the shore.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Lots of volumetrics here, and the smoke.
I love the dust motes and the petals and the little bits of foliage in here. It's pretty awesome.
Also, once again, their costume design. Those were so intricate in the original, and they showed us close-ups of all the models and just the amount of like triangles per model. But like the quality of the materials and just the detail on every single model is really, really impressive. And especially that huge thing that just crashed out of there. He's got there are some physics applied to the objects on top, so there's stuff kind of moving around and waving as it stumbles across the beach. And this is where we get the lasers deforming the sand, well, shortly anyway.
But I'm just loving the art direction here, this sort of combination of the high tech and the low tech directly stuck on top
really
of it.
good looking.
And just the sheer spectacle here of Aloy single-handedly taking on this massive beast. It's just pretty epic.
Yeah, look at that. As he fires his lasers, the way it sort of leaves trails in the sand, that's super cool.
That does look awesome. Yeah, and it also has like a special particle effect of the sand parting two ways in the middle, like bisecting. Oh, that's very cool.
I feel like when it comes to particles in general, that's something Guerrilla's always been really, really superb at.
Oh man. So I'm curious about, we saw this creature destroying the trees earlier. Do you think there'll be Crisis-like tree destruction in this game, or was that just for the cinematic?
I suspect that much of this might be scripted for combat set pieces.
That blew up.
I don't know. I feel like that would probably be something that would occur within specific sequences, not necessarily every tree.
No, just the palms usually. That's cool.
Though, I mean, in Crisis, you can't destroy every tree either. So that's cool, though. When the things fall off the top, all that wood structure kind of crashes down. That's really great looking.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like a bunch of physics objects separately, or if it's like an alembic animation or something like that.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It looked very alembic somehow, but
yeah.
Just what to see.
So here's another part where
more destruction.
Holographic hand glider, such a weird thing.
See, the destruction there, I suspect it is a little bit like Crisis, where they kind of define certain structures and objects that can be destroyed, but the majority of the world cannot be, probably for gameplay reasons, where you wouldn't want to be able to destroy everything necessarily, unless the game is built around that. And
yeah.
I mean, it is just pretty epic all around, really, isn't it? I'm just, again, I just can't quite fathom how this is going to translate across to PlayStation 4 and just the whole production process in getting something of this quality to still look great on a base PS4.
They could end up dropping resolution on PlayStation 4 though, which I guess would be a good way to alleviate some of the GPU concerns for some things. Obviously not for everything.
I guess the question, I'm curious to see the scalability of their engine with this.
It would be a shame to play at 30 again after, all this hype of 60 FPS for so many things this gen, but, what can you do?
We also don't know what their performance target necessarily is here on PS5. Like, they're showing us at 30 frames per second, but that doesn't necessarily mean there won't be a 60 FPS mode, right? As we've seen with some other recent games, shall we say.
A lot of people were kind of hoping that they would be simultaneously announcing a 60 FPS patch for PlayStation 5 on the original game.
Yeah.
And I guess all I can really say about that is that when you look at the PC version and the fact that it took them months to get that version running well at 60 frames per second. And I do remember when I was at the PS4 Pro launch, journalists there would ask if the PS4 Pro version would have a 60 frames per second mode. They just said, look, it's a game that's designed for 30 frames per second, and as we discovered on the PC side, a lot of that was actually baked in at 30 frames per second. But at the same time, I think a lot of that was basically down to CPU limitations, and that's something that could be engineered out with this PlayStation 5 version.
Yeah, especially because the engine itself has improved in time. We know that Death Stranding on the PC runs really well. Horizon itself, that was a pretty early game in terms of when it started development, I assume. And their engine has definitely evolved.
So we've reached the end of the trailer here, and it is pretty immense. I mean, visually speaking, density, artistry, technology, it ticks all of the boxes. But at the same time, you can identify it as a cross-gen game in some respects. You know, when you see what Insomniac are doing with Ratchet, that's really kind of specifically targeting PlayStation 5 capabilities, there is a difference there. But, you know, they're just doubling down on everything that they're fantastic at, adding things like the extra traversal mechanics, the underwater stuff. So, yeah, I'm just hugely excited by what I've seen here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. The one thing I still want to see, though, I guess, over time is someone to talk about the changes in their graphics tech since then. So maybe there'll be presentations over time, as well as to see what some of the less exciting gameplay looks like. Because, you know, Horizon, the original game, had you going into towns and talking to people. This was more like a cinematic mission, so it would be interesting to see what some of the slower gameplay is like.
Yeah, it just seems more polished and refined all around visually. Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it.
And I think as an extension to that, we talked about sort of artistry, and I think a bit of a sort of unappreciated art is whoever was playing this game did a phenomenal job in terms of both playing the game well and also in terms of getting the camera position just right for those killer shots.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's part of the spectacle here. It's kind of, I mean, we were talking about this earlier, John, when we put together our showcase videos. There is the case that you're approaching it not just as a gamer, but also as like a director to get the best shots.
Yeah, I always kind of think to myself when capturing for those videos that as if I'm playing some kind of E3 demo on stage, you know, in my house. And it's just, you kind of, that usually means slower camera movement, you know, trying to highlight and smoothly transition between scenes and just making the game look good as you play. And it's a fun and unique challenge.
I think another thing which sort of strikes me as pretty exceptional is the LOD management. You just don't really see pop-in at all.
Oh, yeah.
It's just such a coherent world.
You're absolutely right.
Oh, for sure.
I suspect that's probably something that will change with the PS4 version, I'd imagine. They scale that way back.
Okay, well, let's go around the table. Final thoughts, John.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is exactly kind of what I had hoped to see for the most part. It's an evolution of what Horizon offered, and it looks phenomenal, and it's definitely one of the best-looking games we've seen thus far.
Alex?
I'd say I really love the water simulation aspects a lot. It's something I talked about in my original video, but it really does sell the kind of shoreline and the cresting waves and all these things. I'm not sure if I really like the hero lighting, but, you know, that's an artistic thing and less so a technological one.
Yeah. I think,
Exactly.
well, one thing to bear in mind, I first saw Horizon running on PS4 Pro at the PS4 Pro reveal, and it wasn't so far out from when the game actually shipped, but the game dramatically transformed in its final few months of development. It was a lot better, and I would expect to see the same thing here. This is work in progress footage, so as spectacular as it is, I'm fully expecting to see something even better in the final product. Again, I just can't overstress just the sheer wealth of detail that's gone into this and the sheer attention to detail. And I also loved the character rendering, animation, facial animation. I think is pretty awesome. I mean, that initial shot, you can actually kind of see Aloy's genuine concern for a friend there. That's the kind of nuance that I love to see in these games. And again, it is just fantastic after so long to see a new Guerrilla game, to see all of those skills brought to the fore. And what I also like is the fact that there's still a huge amount of mystery around this title. The fact that there is a PS4 game that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
And all of the implications that has for the whole production. And I'm sure that as we get closer to launch and beyond, we'll find out more about this, and I just can't wait. Okay, well, I think we're going to leave it there. So thanks so much for joining me on this one. As always, if you like the content, please do like, subscribe, share. If you are subscribed, ring the bell for instant, and I'm going to say it again, instant notifications whenever Digital Foundry posts new video content. And of course, the DF supporter program. Head over to our Patreon, get involved, see all of the bonus behind the scenes stuff, get involved with DF Retro. It's pretty awesome. But that's all from us for now. Thanks for watching.